Welcome to YARCON 2020. My name is Anna Уварова, and today I'm going to talk to you about very young learners of English. So, very young learners of English, what lexical chunks to teach. First, I would love to introduce myself. I'm a CLIL methodologist at Pavlovo School, Moscow, and I've been working as a CLIL methodologist for more than 10 years. I'm also founder of online CLIL project HappyMe. And my biggest achievement here is my CLIL board for young learners, where teachers and parents may find tasks, CLIL tasks to use with their kids. I'm also a CLIL course designer, and I design materials for young learners, for very young learners, for teens, based on CLIL methodology. Biggest achievement here is my HappyMe course for very young learners, which is, of course, based on CLIL methodology. And of course, I'm a CLIL researcher. I research how CLIL improves language skills of very young learners. So, as you can see, CLIL is my passion, and research is my passion. But I'm also teaching, and I've been teaching very young learners for more than 20 years. And so I can say that very young learners are my life. So, and today I want to share with you results of my research that focused on very young learners and their Russian language. So, let's have a look.
Хотите постоянно развиваться в преподавании иностранных языков? Школа Дмитрия Никитина проводит образовательные тренинги, конференции и курсы для преподавателей. Подробности о событиях можно узнать по ссылке в описании.
So, in my research, I want to focus on the language that the kids use when they talk to each other in Russian, in the lesson, and while reading. Based on that, I wanted to come up with a list of pragmatic meanings or functions of English lexical chunks taught or used in EFL classrooms. And I wanted to compare the lexical chunks with the ones that were used by the teachers taking part in the research. So, before we start talking about the research, its implications, and the key points, the key takeaways, I want just to tell you what we are going to talk today about. So first, of course, I will define lexical chunks. That will make it easier for us to discuss my research. Then I'll tell you shortly about the research itself, its settings, the results, how these results can be implicated, and the key points or key takeaways, I would say. Let's get started. So, lexical chunks. Lexical chunk is a sequence of words or that are stored in your memory as a whole and is retrieved as a whole from your memory at the time of use, rather than being subject to analysis. So the most common lexical chunks that come to my mind, if I think about very young learners, could be, how are you? I'm fine, thanks. Or maybe sit down. What are the lexical chunks can you come up with? I decided to ask some help from AI, my personal AI helper, to come up with a list of lexical chunks that are usually taught at the primary level. And these are chosen by AI. Hi, how are you? You're welcome. Look at me. I have a cat. I like, I don't like. Not quite usual. All right. Let's stop here with lexical chunks for a moment. And let's look at one more term that we will need today. And that's pragmatics. So while talking to you about my research today, I will use two phrases, pragmatic meaning and pragmatic function. When we say pragmatic meaning, we talk about the meaning that this particular sentence takes in this specific context. When these two particular speakers are speaking about this particular topic. And pragmatic function, that's the role or purpose that a linguistic unit serves in this specific context. So let's have a look at some examples, because I think that definition might sound a bit complicated. Let's have a look. So, for example, how are you? Sometimes when I ask, how are you? I actually want to say hi. So I mean hi, just by saying, how are you? But on the other hand, I can ask, how are you? When I want to know how you are, really. And in use from the hospital, for example. Maybe you went there yesterday. So I really want to know how you are. Another example. I can say I'm cold. And sometimes when I say I'm cold, I actually mean, could you close the window, please? On the other hand, sometimes I say I'm cold, but I want to know, I want just to put on a sweater. So that's why I'll have to go to another room to pick up my sweater. And there is another example. I'm okay. So I can say I'm okay, meaning that I'm fine. Hi, how are you? I'm fine. I'm okay. On the other hand, I can say I'm okay. I'm okay. Don't help me. I can do it myself. I'm okay. And so the meaning is again different. So the meaning of each phrase depends on the context, and it depends on the situation, and it depends on who is saying this phrase. All right, that's what we will need today. Now let's get back to my research. And so I conducted my research in the language school in Moscow and at kids' premises at home. I had 51 monolingual Russian-speaking children aged 4 to 7 years old and 6 experienced teachers, native and non-native speakers of English. And I also had, I collected 10 hours recordings that I analyzed. These were lessons and free play. And here you can see what groups I had at school. And here you can see what play groups I observed. As you can see, there were 3 kids in each case. So, what did I get here? Let's have a look. I'm sorry, just a second. Yeah. All right, let's have a look. So, I collected videos and audios of all my observations, and I transcribed them. And then I found all the lexical chunks based on some criteria. So, for example, try it like this. When a child wants to help another child, or I'll do something, for example, I'll make it for you. When again, the child wants to help. Or over here, like, look, the toys are over here. Come over here. Oh, I'm okay. No help needed, actually. It was in this context. Oh, look what I found when I want to share with you my possessions. Or I've got something, again, I want to share with you my possessions. Or guess what? I want to share with you a story, a secret, maybe. I'll be the princess. So when we are discussing some rules or roles of a game, or stop doing something when we are playing this game, or I don't want to be a princess when we are talking about this game again. And so there are more phrases. There are a lot of phrases, to be honest, and you can find all these phrases if you use this QR code. You will get to my Telegram channel, where you will see the list in the comments. All right. So I analyzed all these chunks. I analyzed their pragmatic meaning, and then I reviewed literature, and I came up with a list of lexical chunks that should be used or taught based on the fact that the kids use these chunks in Russian when they talk to each other in the lessons while I was recording them. And these are chunks that we use to cooperate or to do an activity together, when we help each other, or when we ask or decline help, when we discuss the rules and roles of a game, when we share knowledge, experience, a possession, or a secret, of course, when we demonstrate what we can do. And the next one is interesting, polite requests, including magic words such as please, thank you, and so on. And that's interesting because in my research, the kids didn't use polite requests a lot. But according to the literature, this is quite common for kids because usually at the age of 4 or 5, they associate polite requests and magic words with adults. Because usually we adults are the ones who ask for these magic words. And so when they talk to each other, they don't use them a lot. But they should be taught these words, definitely. And the last one is institutionalized routines. Sounds quite interesting, right? But then I looked at the language that my teachers used in this research. And I didn't find all those categories. So what I had was institutionalized routines, such as how are you, nice to see you, and so on. Requests, for example, sit down, open your books. And that's quite interesting because these requests usually were not that polite. So the teachers normally didn't use, could you sit down, please? Or can you sit down, please? They would just say, sit down. But we know that the kids should be taught polite requests. And cooperating, for example, let's sing a song together. Let's play a game. So there is some difference, isn't there? And it doesn't mean that these teachers were not experienced enough. No, it's just that sometimes we don't notice the language that the kids use. Anyway, what can we do with all these wonderful results? Let's have a look. As I have already told you, I'm not talking about some exact chunks that the kids should be taught. I'm talking more about some pragmatic meaning.
Хотите постоянно развиваться в преподавании иностранных языков? Школа Дмитрия Никитина проводит образовательные тренинги, конференции и курсы для преподавателей. Подробности о событиях можно узнать по ссылке в описании.
For example, this is quite a usual task. I spy. The kids count how many they can see. And usually we ask them just to tell us, for example, I don't know, 7 skirts or 8 skirts. Or they may say, there are 8 skirts. The task is good, the chunk is good. But to help your kids feel the pragmatic meaning, to associate this phrase with some particular situation, context where they can use this phrase, we need to add a bit of a story here. That we need to count how many pieces of clothing we have in our wardrobe at home, or we can find in our classroom. And then this task becomes more engaging, and the phrase, there are 5 hats, becomes very meaningful, And the kids will only grasp the phrase itself, and they will repeat it many times while giving feedback on the task, right? But they will also grasp the pragmatic meaning of this phrase. And so next time when they play together and they see a toy, they will say, oh, look, there are 5 Lego blocks, right? Now let's look at another task. So it's task from Peppa and Pop 1. And here the kids need just to count how many stationary items they can see, which is a good task, because usually then the kids would say 3 bears, taking into account their level, right? I don't know, 3 bears, or they can say, I've got 3 bears. Now, again, let's add a bit of a story here. So there is a bag. This is my magic bag. I need to decide what I want to take to school. I'm allowed to take only 10 items. So maybe I want to take 10 pencils, or maybe I want to take 8 pencils and 2 erasers. Okay, the kids draw what they want to take to school, and then they share what they've got. And again, it is quite similar, but the thing is that the phrase already kind of like the phrase, I've got 5 pencils. So somebody says, I don't know, one kid says, I've got 3 pencils, and another one says, and I've got 5 pencils, right? So it already gets this pragmatic meaning that I'm sharing my possessions with you. Another option can be that I need to look what I have in my bag, in my real bag, and then after that I draw it in my black and white bag, right? And then I share again what I've got in my real bag. Let's look at another task. So this is a usual bingo. I love bingo. My kids love bingo. Everyone loves bingo. Come on. I hope. I think it's a good game. And again, when we play bingo, usually kids are, at least, usually kids are to say, I've got an apple. And only after that, they can cross out this apple, right? Or they can get this card with an apple. But let's add a bit of a story to this task again. Summertime, picnic, summer picnic. That's what we all love. So we are going on a picnic, but first of all, we need to decide what you're going to have on your picnic. That's why I showed the kids all the food available for our picnic. And the kids, each kid needs to choose 6 items they want to have on a picnic. And they draw in their grid. You can see it in front of the basket. Then I have an envelope behind my basket. And I put all these cards with all this food, right, in this envelope. And then we act out going on a picnic. So you can use the song as like walking in the forest. You're just going on a picnic, going on a picnic, going on a picnic, going on a picnic, right? And finally we are there, I don't know, in the park. We sit down, we get ready, and I start taking out the cards from this envelope. And I take out a card and I say, who would like an apple? And if there is a child who wants an apple, the child would say, yes, please, or I'd like an apple, and so on. And if a child doesn't want an apple, they say like, no, thanks. Okay. And that means that they drill this phrase, I'd like something, but in a very meaningful situation with very meaningful pragmatic, with very meaningful pragmatic meaning. I don't know how to, yeah. All right. Another option can be that we want to cook fruit salad, for example, and we need to decide what fruit we want to put in this fruit salad. And again, at first the kids may choose what they want to put, and then they get together and they discuss it, and each of them say, I'd like to add an apple, or I'd like to add an orange, and so on. One more example, these are just flashcards, and we usually play a lot with flashcards. Yeah, we can play memory game, we can just play what's missing game, we can just name the pictures, and so on. It's a fox, it's an owl, it's a hedgehog, and so on. But we can add a bit of a story to this task. Walking in the forest, we are not afraid, we are not afraid. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps forward, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps back. Stop! Look! What's that? Ew! Look! There are 2 foxes. Oh, look! I found a snake. Oh, look, I found apples. So the kids first color what they can find, right? And then they share. And again, look, I found, or which is a very useful chunk because they always use it when they play with each other. Or look, there are, or look, I can see. So it's up to you. So again, the idea is to not just to drill this phrase, the one that you choose, but to drill it in a meaningful context so that they can remember it easily and they can associate it with some specific context. And then this phrase will have some specific pragmatic meaning. All right.
Хотите постоянно развиваться в преподавании иностранных языков? Школа Дмитрия Никитина проводит образовательные тренинги, конференции и курсы для преподавателей. Подробности о событиях можно узнать по ссылке в описании.
Anyway, so what are my key points that I try to deliver? I have my research. I have my list of lexical chunks, but it doesn't mean that all the kids have the same needs. The main idea is that, as usual, we need to pay attention to emergent language. But when we talk about very young learners, we should pay attention to their emergent language and to lexical chunks that are emergent. And we shouldn't be afraid of some grammatically complicated chunks because kids are amazing, their brain is amazing. And as Cameron says, they are capable of memorizing very long and complicated chunks if they feel the need. And if we talk about emergent language is about necessity. So that's why I drill such phrases as it could have been. They've done something, I don't know. It could have been. It could be. Anything I've seen. Yeah, anything you want. You just make sure that the meaning, pragmatic meaning of the phrase is very clear from the context, based on the context and the story. So from here we go that it's not just about emergent language, but it's about pragmatic meaning of this language and function. And quite often the kids might use a bit different phrases when they actually want to say, when they want to deliver that pragmatic meaning. And you just focus on that pragmatic meaning and choose one phrase for that. And when we work with this language, it's very important to create a storyline, to create a story similar to their maybe real life situation where they can feel this lexical chunk and they can feel its pragmatic meaning to the fullest. And when we talk about working with chunks, I'm not saying that you are to create a lesson based on this lexical chunk, one lexical chunk. No, yeah. It's more about working with the right now language. So I create a game which I create a task, right, which incorporates language drill. And we focus on some particular chunks, right, or maybe one chunk quite often. And this task is connected with the topic we're talking about. But I just drill this chunk and then we'll move on. And step by step, the kids accumulate these chunks, and step by step, they start analyzing them and they start using them. So I hope that my little talk encouraged you to pay attention to your kids' emergent language and emergent lexical chunks, and not just the chunks themselves, but their pragmatic meaning. and you are ready now to create short stories to use in your lesson to drill these lexical chunks. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, you are welcome to ask me to ask those questions. So you can find me in VK or in Telegram. And if you have any questions about CLIL as well, I'm always happy to help you because as you know, CLIL is my passion, but very young learners are my life. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye-bye.